Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be the first one in part 2 of my authenticity series. And if you're new here, I want to explain to you a little bit what the authenticity series is all about. So if you haven't watched my video on overcoming depression, which is the first video that I put out explaining this series, definitely make sure you go back and watch that one because it's going to kind of give you like a little bit of the backstory on the series. But in a nutshell, I personally have been struggling with some mental and emotional battles for a really long time. Mainly like depression and anxiety and stuff like that. And I'm putting out the authenticity series as my journey to becoming my 100% authentic self because I feel like it's the main reason I've been struggling with some of those things. And yeah, I just came across so many pieces of content and creators along the way who helped me. And so I'm kind of hoping I can give back in the same way and share my journey with you all in the hopes that sharing some of the stuff I learned could be helpful to anyone else who's on a journey. And so if that sounds interesting to you, please make sure you hit that subscribe button as well as the bell notification. These episodes of the series come out every Monday, and then that way you won't miss it when new episodes come out. So also, if you guys are new here, I want to just quickly give you a rundown of what my channel is about. Like I just mentioned, Monday's videos are all about authenticity and my authenticity journey. And then Thursday's videos are me sharing my passion of holistic living. So things like cleansing, juicing, fasting, and raw food to get our bodies to the optimal health on the outside, like our physical bodies. And then the mental and emotional videos to get to health on the inside. So if you guys are interested in that, I also wanted to invite you to join my free Facebook group, which is called Raw and Real. And it's a place that I created where we can come together if you are on a journey of reaching a complete picture of health, like if you're on an authenticity journey and you're also wanting to up your nutritional game. I created the free Facebook group for us to be a support group where we can uplift each other and yeah, just all be on the journey together. So if that sounds interesting to you, please check it out and I'll put the link in the description below. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the video. So part 2 of the authenticity series is all about loving others. If you didn't catch the episodes in part 1, make sure you go back and watch those and I'll put them on the screen here for you to see which ones are part of part 1. But part 1 was all about loving yourself, which is hands down the most important step to first taking a journey of authenticity. And the second part that we're going to focus on is loving other people. And so the first video in this series is going to be all about letting go of judgment and expectations, because this is one of the biggest things that I've personally noticed has held me back from having strong relationships with other people. So I want to start out this video by defining what are expectations? What does that even mean? So the definition of an expectation is a strong belief that something will happen or be the case. And I just want to quickly say that it's actually totally normal to have expectations. We all have expectations about our world based on the beliefs we have about the world and what we predict is going to happen based on those beliefs. So just an example of this is, for example, if you were raised to believe that men should always pay for women on a first date, you're naturally going to have the expectation that this man is going to pay for your dinner on your first date together. So again, there's nothing inherently wrong with having expectations, and in fact, it's actually impossible to completely eliminate all expectations. Otherwise, we would go about life feeling just totally anxious and uncertain all the time, because we wouldn't really be able to have any sort of prediction about our world or our environment or how people will respond to us or anything like that. And so when expectations start to become damaging to our relationships is when we pair them with judgment. So let's talk a little bit more about judgment now. So we just did the definition of expectations. Let's go ahead and do the definition of judgment. So a judgment is an opinion or a conclusion drawn about someone's behavior or some event or circumstance. So judgments can either be positive or negative. And what I've noticed tends to happen is when we have some expectation that's not met, so like our expectation is frustrated in some way, and something different than what we wanted to happen happens, we tend to err on the side of making a negative judgment about that. And this is because usually when an expectation is frustrated, it causes us to feel a negative emotion, such as like sadness or disappointment or anger or just anything negative. And so we might start having thoughts like something's wrong with that person, or they should just know better not to treat me like that, or this just shouldn't have happened, and thoughts like that when our expectations are frustrated. So I just want to quickly say too, if you go back to my video on shame, I go over why there really is no such thing as right or wrong, and that'll already kind of help you start to let go of some of those judgment words that we use. But if we ever want to be our most authentic selves, it's going to be really important that we learn how to let go of negative judgments of other people. And this is for 2 main reasons. The first reason being that if you tend to judge other people for not being perfect all the time, what's actually going to happen is you're also going to subconsciously worry that others will judge you for not being perfect all the time. So for example, if you judge other people for, let's say, not sending thank you notes, if you give them a gift, if the situation is reversed and they give you a gift, you're most likely going to be very worried that they would judge you for not sending them a thank you note. And so this is naturally, again, going to create some anxiety in your relationships, and it's going to be really hard to be 100% authentic with other people when you're worrying about that type of thing. And the second reason is that if you have an interaction with someone and they don't receive you in the way, or they treat you in a way that you weren't expecting them to, what can happen is you can not only feel resentful the next time you have an interaction with them because the interaction didn't go the way you hoped it would, or they treated you in some way you didn't want to be treated, but you also might start hiding parts of yourself to avoid this type of rejection again. And again, you can't be your authentic self if you're hiding yourself from people. So now that we define these two terms, I want to dive into talking about the difference of behavior and your judgment of someone else's behavior. And these concepts come directly from a book that I'm reading called Parent Effectiveness Training. And I think it's honestly like a really great book for people to read in general on communication. Like it normally is for parents communicating with their kids, but it's also honestly just a great book on communication in general. So I definitely highly recommend that you guys check it out, even if you don't have kids. And I'll link it down in the description below for you. So behavior is nothing more than the actions that someone takes, what someone says or does. And your judgment of someone's behavior is you describing what you believe to be true about that person's behavior. So let's say, for example, you were having a disagreement with your spouse and you were talking to another person about it, and they asked you, oh, what behavior is your spouse doing that bothers you? If you were to answer, my spouse is rude, that's actually not behavior, that's your judgment of your spouse's behavior. So a better answer, for example, could be, my spouse looks at their phone when I'm talking to them. So when you can distinguish the difference between noticing someone's behavior and your judgment of their behavior, it makes it a lot easier for you to stop seeing behavior as either good or bad. Because, for example, in the example that I just gave, some people would have no problem at all with their spouse being on their phone while they were talking to them. They wouldn't see it as rude, and they would see it as nothing more than just behavior. Instead, what we all have are what are considered to be acceptable behaviors to us and unacceptable behaviors. And if a behavior is acceptable to you, meaning it causes you no emotional reaction or any kind of inconvenience to you or anything like that, then you don't need to take any further action. But if a behavior is considered unacceptable to you, meaning it does cause you some kind of emotional distress, or it costs you time or money or some kind of inconvenience in some way, then what we all have to realize is that is our problem and not the problem of the person who's exhibiting the behavior. So now that we've given the background on how negative judgments can happen so easily when we're taking a look at other people's behavior, I want to let you guys know how I've started letting go of judgment and how Parent Effectiveness Training was able to help me do this. So like I just mentioned a minute ago, the fastest way to let go of judgment is going to be to make that distinguishment between seeing a behavior as either good or bad, and instead seeing it as acceptable or unacceptable to you in your specific situation. And because behavior just is, it's going to be your responsibility to communicate to another person when behavior is unacceptable to you. So the way Parent Effectiveness Training teaches us to do this is you're going to want to do something called sending a 3-part iMessage. And the 3 parts of the iMessage are going to consist of a description of the behavior, again with no judgment, solely just seeing the behavior as it is and just describing what the behavior was, how it impacts you, and the feeling you're experiencing after the behavior is exhibited. And so an example for an iMessage you could send in the scenario earlier is, I feel sad or disappointed because I was really wanting your undivided attention, and I don't get that when you're looking at your phone when I'm talking to you. And so if you know you have the power to communicate to another person when their behavior is troubling you or your needs aren't being met, you're much less likely to feel judgmental of their behavior and realize that it's your own expectations that you need to communicate. Now, just as a quick warning for this, it's not going to be foolproof every time because the other person also has needs of their own. And so a lot of times what happens when you do send an iMessage is the other person is likely to come back with what their needs are in the situation as well. So an example that your spouse might come back with in the scenario earlier is, oh, I don't think it's a problem. I'm still listening to you. It's really important that I check these work emails, or just whatever their feelings and situations about their needs might be. And so if you're wanting your own needs met in the situation, it can be really beneficial to try your hardest to be empathetic and understand the other person's needs first. So what parent effectiveness training recommends for this is called active listening. And this is just making sure that you understand the other person's needs and repeat them back and make sure that you understand what the other person needs before seeking to get your own needs met. And then the final step is once you're both able to identify your needs in the situation, you're able to put your heads together and come up with a solution that works for both of you. So for example, from the scenario earlier, the solution might be that your spouse agrees to take 10 minutes to answer work emails, and then they'll give you their undivided attention after that. So in conclusion, using this no-lose method, as it's called by parent effectiveness training, is a great way to let go of judgment of other people and to feel more in control when your expectations are frustrated so you don't experience those negative judgments. And this makes it easier to feel loving and accepting towards others in general. And another great thing is when you do this, you start to no longer see other people as responsible for causing your emotional upset, but instead it's your own expectations about the situation that are being frustrated. And what's really cool about putting together the 3-part I message is when you get to the part of how that person's behavior is impacting you, a lot of times you'll find that the only direct impact is the fact that your own expectations are being frustrated. So it allows you to take a lot more control and responsibility for your own emotions and opens you up to feel more loving and accepting to the other person. And the best thing I think about this method is that as you practice more and more with this method and you get more and more comfortable with communicating your needs and expectations, you'll naturally start to become more comfortable with being your authentic self, and you'll feel safer sharing yourself with the world. So that wraps up for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. If you did, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up and share it with your friends. I would greatly appreciate it. And please also follow me on Instagram. I would love to connect with you guys. And if you have any questions or requests for future videos, you can always DM me there and let me know. The next episode of the series is going to be all about how other people are actually a mirror of you. And once you understand this concept, it's going to make it much easier for you to be loving and accepting towards other people. So if you don't want to miss that episode as well as future episodes in the Authenticity series, please make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. And besides that, guys, I'll see you next time.